Welcome all to the Node, where we cut through the hype and the bullshit and bring you the alpha. My name is Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and with me, as always, is David from DeFi University and also the Node. How's it going, brother?
Mike, you should start calling me just in time Dave because I show up literally with like 5 seconds on the clock right at noon every day.
You always show up during the intro. It's always just like freaking bloop, like right as that
Well,
little glass ball starts rolling. It's like you can feel it.
yeah,
Like
you know what it is, Mike? I'm always working right up until the last second that the show
I know,
starts. And
I know.
yeah, you know.
I used to get nervous, and I'd be like, "Dude, are you coming?" Now I just
Oh
know
no,
that you're going to show up during the
I'm right
intro.
here.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I
you're
was
all
working on, man. I was working on Bob and accounting, and
nice.
getting that all set up. That's going to be so good. It's going to be so good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Well, good morning to the chat. Appreciate you all showing up. Got about got people trickling in. Got about 10 or 20 people watching us live. But really quick, this episode is going to be dedicated to basically, on social media the past couple of days. I've been watching and I don't consider us influencers. We're not trying to influence anybody. We're trying to educate people. I hate that term influencer, but it does apply to some people because there are a lot of people out there that understand crypto, yet they try to farm engagement with clickbait titles and hype and things like that for various reasons, to pump their own bags, because they're paid, whatever. We don't do that here. And this episode is going to be about cutting through some of that BS that is going on in social media right now. Talking about the stablecoin legislation, the Clarity Act, and they're talking about DeFi's dead, and they're stable coins are dead, and all this stuff to try to get people to engage with their content. That's not what's going on. And Dagnum, I ran across some of his stuff, and he's calling them out. He's actually going to be on the show next week. And super smart dude. I love his content. We've interviewed him before, but he is very even keeled, level headed, all about facts, logic. Everything's data driven. I love that about it. But that being said, let's jump into this. I want to let everyone know where to find us. So if you want to join the chat, that you can see, actually I need to move that so it's not covering David's face. But
Yeah.
but the if you want to be part of the chat, ask questions, just kind of be a part of the community, come on over here to the Node channel on YouTube. It's at the Node_channel. You can find all of our content here. So this is all of our live shows that are coming up. Here you can find this show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific to 11 a.m. You can find the Node, our 2-hour show. It's our flagship show. Then we got Crypto and Chill with myself and Jeff on Tuesdays and Fridays. Usually end of the day, we just kind of talk about life in general, sprinkle in some crypto. It's more about just relaxing and decompressing. Blockchain Report with Jeff. That's his solo show where he talks about early projects and farming airdrops. DeFi High with DeFi Don immediately after this show, Monday through Friday, where he talks about entry level DeFi education and small business. He's a very successful business owner, and so he tries to talk about what it takes to start a small business and be successful as a small business owner. Myself and Drew are dialing in a day at a time for our new show, Sovereign Soil. It's going to be all about self sovereignty. That's why a lot of us are here in crypto. Why a lot of us want to debank. Why a lot of us are homesteaders and emergency preparedness. Into emergency preparedness. So it's something I'm very passionate about. David does daily market wrap ups. So, end of the trading day, East Coast, 4 p.m. He's going to be, basically just going over the markets and what happened that day. Great content. I highly suggest, that you tune in for that. Find out from this show what's going on at the beginning of the day, that show for the end of the day. If you just want to relax, you're not doing anything on a Saturday night, Jeff is a DJ and he spins some tunes. We got the red pill on Thursdays where we pretty much, the long and the short of it is we get hammered and talk about stuff you're not supposed to talk about.
No, we don't do that, Mike.
That is exactly what we do. And then we got gaming and chill. So a couple of people from our community, Ellie and Jay, they get together on Sunday evenings, and just game. Just game and have fun. So if you're into gaming, got something for that. And then David is actually going to start adding a bit of content to, I believe, to his daily wrap up, where he's going to take Ellie, who's a member of our community, that she knows a little bit about crypto, but she's just not super. She's in the chat right now. She's just not super well versed in DeFi, and so she's been reluctant to get really in depth into DeFi. And so David's going to use her as a guinea pig, and he's going to take her through his one-on-one course. So over here on our official channel, the Node.pro, he has this private coaching. And so basically free of charge, he's going to take her through live on the show his private coaching and show what he usually charges people for. Basically go through her portfolio, go through what it is that she's invested in, as much as she wants to divulge. But maybe he'll do that off air, and then from that he's going to develop a program specifically tailored for her to educate her on DeFi, and in a matter of a couple of weeks, get her up to speed to where she is a successful DeFi investor. So tell us a little bit more about that, David.
Sure. So, the private coaching, I've worked with between 300 and 400 private clients this cycle, just over the last 4 years, in between 20 and 30 countries. I don't know. Definitely greater than 20 countries. I was keeping track at one point, but I forgot. And so I've worked with a lot of people, and I've built a couple of different programs now, private coaching programs for crypto, DeFi, Bitcoin, stuff like that. And what I'm going to do with Ellie is I'm going to start from zero, regardless of whether she already has a DeFi portfolio or not. We're going to start from zero. We're going to begin by talking through security best practices, and she's going to set up a hot wallet. I'm going to have her sharing her screen, and I'm going to use an annotation tool to draw on her screen. And I'm literally going to show her step by step and click by click exactly what to do as I talk through every step of the way. And so we're going to start with security and getting a hot wallet set up. And then I'm going to send her Then I'm going to send her $100 in USDC and a little bit of ETH on the base chain. And over the next 8 weeks, we're going to use that 100 USDC and that little bit of ETH on the base chain. And we're going to learn how to swap. And then we're going to learn how to use money markets. And then we're going to learn how to provide liquidity. And then we're going to learn how to trade perpetual futures. And all along the way, we're going to be talking about mindset stuff the entire way. And it's going to be really great, man. So what I found working with people was that even when people had zero experience, starting from zero, it usually takes about 8 weeks. And then right around that 7 or 8 week mark, people would have this light bulb moment where, like, all of a sudden, they would start to get it. They would start to understand it. And it would be like, oh man, I really understand what I'm doing now. And then all of a sudden on the next session, I would have the client coming to me saying, hey, I found this opportunity. What do you think about this? And then we could all of a sudden have a discussion about something. So yeah, man, it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really cool. And what I'd like to do with it, Mike, is I'd like to turn it into like its own segment, like immediately after the daily market wrap. So it's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I'm excited to watch it. I actually want to watch it because I really want to see your process, because I've never seen it. It's because obviously it's a one-on-one service, so it's not like you're gonna have me lingering on a call or something like that.
Well, no, I mean, you'll be able to watch it live. That's the
exactly
the whole point. And look, I mean, the private coaching stuff, man, like this skill set, this DeFi skill set is so valuable, dude. And you know what else is valuable? A homesteading and preparedness skill set. You know what else is valuable? a small business skill set. You know
Well,
what else?
it all ties together, to be honest.
Music, bro.
With self sovereignty,
Yeah.
and if you understand small business formation, and how to mitigate your tax burden, and the legalities of LLCs and S corps, and things like that, to where you can structure a small business with your investing. And if you're into homesteading, or have a dream of basically being self-reliant when it comes to your food and water and things like that, it's the perfect mix of true freedom, financial freedom, freedom from the poisons and the food. It really is a nice little group of kind of knowledge, or this channel, this network that we're building. It's all very complementary.
Oh yeah, 100%. Whether it's crypto, DeFi, sovereignty financially, or
Yeah.
it's homesteading and preparedness, sovereignty like where you live,
Yeah.
or it's learning how to operate a small business, or
Mhm.
it's you just want to be able to relax and listen to some music, so like, or maybe you want to get drunk and talk politics.
Yeah.
Any of those
No,
things.
it's there's something to be said for that. It's staying knowledgeable. And if you can make it entertaining, on what's going on in politics and things like that, then even better. But yeah, Peter, talking about, I use a trust for my on-chain business. See, a lot of people don't even know what a trust is. And that's why we bring Taylor on Mondays. Is my brother Taylor? He owns a couple of his own law firms, the Willingham Law, down in McKinney, Texas, and he specializes in estate law. So wills, trusts, small business formation, all of those tools, those legal tools that the rich use to protect themselves, from taxes, from mitigating their taxes, from whenever they die, ensuring that the money goes to where they want it to go, and in the most efficient way possible. We really are, and all of this that we bring to you is no charge to you. I mean, there's a couple of things that we charge for, like David's private coaching. If I start doing some private coaching, I'll charge a little bit for that as well. Our newsletter, so our AI newsletter is very, very unique. Right now, you can just sign up for our website at thenode.pro, and it says subscribe for $20 a month, but the payment isn't set up yet. David's doing that. It should be dialed in, like probably next week, maybe the week after. But you can click on it, and after you sign up and create an account, then you can come on here and you can use this right now. So you can select the assets that you are interested in. It's not a regular newsletter where we pick the assets that you get the information on. So you can pick Bitcoin, Ethereum, Sol. If you want to invest in Apple, or or strategy, a master, Arbitrum, Optimism, whatever. If you know the ticker, you can add it, and this will generate a custom newsletter for you anytime you want. So it doesn't matter where in the world you are. It's not like, oh, we deliver it to your inbox, at 6 a.m. like I'm doing right now. You can have it delivered to your inbox anytime you want. And it gives you trading ranges, it gives you liquidity pool ranges, it gives you news articles with links to the news articles. It's all there for you in an easily digestible format that you can read with your morning coffee or your evening tea, or whatever, whenever it is that you want to consume that information. So this is a really, really good tool, and I haven't seen anything like it out there. So go ahead and jump in there and start using it for at no charge. I can't use the F word, at no charge. And before David gets motivated, and he gets done with all of the
Oh,
Bob.
I'm motivated. I'm
Well, when he
motivated.
I know. It's just once you get done with Bob and accounting and stuff like that, because he has his little checklist of stuff he's getting knocked out. And once he gets to this, it's going to be $20 a month. So start using it now.
Yeah, man,
And
there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So, everything that you don't see, right? To make something like this actually work. Um, yeah, man, it's going to be so great when it's all done, Mike. Just the
yeah,
website, everything working, all of the agents. Like, I'm working on Bob and accounting now, and dude, it's going to be great. It's going to be great, man. Bob and accounting is going to pull from Plaid,
Yep.
Coinbase Business,
Mhm.
Strike,
Mhm.
Stripe, Shopify, EtherFi, and Google Cloud. And so those are all of the the financial items that run the Node.pro. And
Yeah.
so Bobbin Accounting is going to pull read only from all of those every day. And every day, 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern, so 5 o'clock in the morning Pacific, we're going to get a report in the Slack channel that I made for Bobbin Accounting. And we're going to be able to see the status, a snapshot of the business every morning. And then each week on Fridays, we're going to get a week in review. And then
Mhm.
each month, we're going to close out the books. But it's all going to be done by Bobbin Accounting. So very, very
Nice.
cool, man. Yep.
I'm super excited for it. But so one last thing that I want to touch on is on the Node.pro is the store. So this is about to go live as well. And Don is working on some designs on hoodies, hats, beanies, all that kind of stuff. But if you want to support the channel and you're a fan or whatever, I know I'm going to be ordering some stuff. Obviously, it's our business. Mine and David's and Don's and Jeff's. We're going to be sporting the gear. I'm big on hats because if I take my beanie or my hat off, it will blind the camera. So I'm always wearing a hat. But I want to represent the channel. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely be getting me a hat. But there's some good quality. We made sure that we found a supplier that makes good quality, 100% cotton, materials, not stuff that's polyester and all that trash. So super excited about everything we got going on here. But let's go ahead and jump into our content. We should have a guest here jumping on in about 10 minutes or so. I sent him the link. We'll see if he got it. I didn't hear anything back, but we'll drive on either way. So let's pop over to here and we'll put the comments up now. And I want to start off with actually, you know what? Let's start off with this. Let me actually go back to here. Let me share this screen. We're going to zoom in. So this is something that I feel is important. Let's play this real quick. It's a couple minutes.
The Wall Street banking cartel is facing its biggest technology threat since the 1970s. It's trying to bribe Congress to ban it. While voters are distracted by burning oil fields, Wall Street lobbyists are burning up the steak dinners and donor checks to block an existential threat to the fractional reserve Ponzi from a once obscure corner of crypto called stable coins. So House and Senate Republicans are currently in a dogfight over a housing bill that, in theory, would make housing cheaper by either dumping government money into it, the Senate, or in the House letting regional banks pyramid even more loans on the 10 cents on the dollar they have in the vault. Those 10 cents in the vault is known as fractional reserve banking. Critics call it fictional reserve banking, which is the legal privilege where banks can print and lend money they do not actually have. It's called counterfeiting when you try it at home. So handouts versus counterfeiting your Congress at work. Senators are now trying to break the logjam by offering a $1 trillion gift to banks in the form of a ban on stablecoin interest. So a stablecoin is a type of cryptocurrency, but instead of bouncing around like Bitcoin, its one token is always worth $1. This means you can use it like a dollar, but it's much cheaper since you cut out the middleman. So think Visa or Cash App or a checking account with zero fees. More important, stablecoins have to be backed one-for-one with cash or treasuries. Unlike banks, who thanks to fractional reserve only back 7 to 10 cents on the dollar. That's where it gets interesting, because those treasuries in the vault pay interest, currently over 4%. And because stablecoins cost almost nothing to run, they can pass 94% of that on to users. This effectively makes stablecoins a bank account that's fully backed, zero fee, and pays 4% interest. In contrast to Wall Street, which is 1/10 backed, collects nearly $100 billion in fees, and pays less than 0.1% interest. So 40 times less interest, the rest is for their mistress in the Hamptons. Spot the problem, nobody would use a bank account, and that is when you call Congress. Now, in theory, bankers already banned interest on stablecoins in last year's Genius Act, but in reality, Stablecoins found ways to keep paying interest. They call them rewards, loyalty bonus, distributions. Coinbase, for example, pays 3 to 4% interest on stablecoins as a rewards program. So with House and Senate Republicans fighting, Wall Street saw its chance to swoop in and finish off competition that, God forbid, would deliver Americans zero-fee bank accounts that pay 4% interest and, being fully backed, do not need $2 trillion bailouts. So what's next, brought to you by I Trust Capital. Wall Street may bribe enough senators to win this battle, but they are losing the war because multiple techs are trying to deliver full reserve banking. Beyond stablecoins, there's tokenized money market funds, corporate currencies, think Tesla dollars or Amazon dollars, literal full reserve banks like Custodian Wyoming, and of course, Bitcoin. The Wall Street Ponzi has to get lucky every single time. Techs that break fractional reserve only have to win once.
So this is something that I know me and David have been talking about quite a bit for a while now. And so, David, do you want to? There's Sean. Do you want to chime in on this? Because I mean, I know this is something that you're very passionate about, and I want people to fully understand what this gentleman, and I just followed him because great content. But what is it exactly that he's talking about? Because this is what's going on social media right now. Is everyone's talking about DeFi's dead, stable coins are dead, and they don't understand what it is they're talking about. And I want people to understand this because I don't want them to get scared off from a potentially life-changing opportunity, because of these influencers. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So like, dude, so this is a parallel financial system. So I think what people are not understanding about this is it really kind of doesn't matter what these legislators say, because they can make any law in the world that they want. But, crypto and DeFi in this world, code is law. Doesn't matter what some guy on some pulpit or on some, soapbox somewhere or, in Congress is saying about you can pay this, you can't pay that. It really doesn't matter. You see, what's going to happen if they make it illegal for Americans to have access to these superior banking products is, guess what? Those products are still going to exist. They're just going to move out of the United States to Southeast Asia or to South America. So all of the brilliant minds who are building this stuff, they're just going to move somewhere else. And those products will still be available to Americans. You'll just have to turn on a VPN, And so today, there's a meeting. The House Financial Services Committee is convening as of, I think, 10 a.m. this morning, Eastern Standard Time. And the title of the hearing was Tokenization and the Future of Securities, Modernizing Our Capital Markets. So this wasn't exactly a hearing designed to address the gap between like the existing security and tokenized assets. Really, what they were doing here was talking about finalizing the difference between securities versus commodities definitions. Okay, so there are, now there's the attach, detach framework, and there are these 5 like core pillars, 5 core types of digital assets that are identified by the SEC and the CFTC now. So they've created a framework for regulating these digital assets. And honestly, like, they can create all the frameworks in the world that they want because code is law in this space. And so if the best product in the world is made in, Singapore or in Ecuador, then like, dude, you don't have to comply with these regulations at all if you don't want to. Now, the stablecoin yield thing, the biggest news this week is, a compromise draft regarding stablecoins. And, here's the thing. The conflict was that banks are concerned that yield-bearing stablecoin products would cause deposit flight. So people moving their money out of traditional bank accounts into crypto for higher interest. Now, it's not just for higher interest, it's also to escape these really just pernicious fees, man. The fees. And we were talking about this in DeFi High, Mike, just yesterday.
Yeah.
Dude, fees on everything. Fees to open an account, fees to close an account, fees to
Well, and
keep the account. Like,
well, and like
you
you
know,
always say, and the fees are for friction that the banks create. So they create the problem so they can charge a fee to solve the problem.
bro, their business model is literally theft. That's their
Yeah,
business model. Their business
yeah,
model is to create dollars out of thin air through fractional reserve banking and then to steal from customers by charging ridiculous fees and provide no value in the process. And now DeFi and crypto comes along with these stablecoin products, and they are superior products. And the financial engineering that you can do with these superior products is scaring these banks, because if it were ever very, very easy to on ramp into
yeah.
crypto, people would never go back. And so, the
That's
banks
that's the
are,
that's the only thing keeping a lot of people out of DeFi is FUD. I hate using FUD because anyway. It's people's lack of education on DeFi, I'll say, and the barriers to entry, and that's what you're just talking about.
yeah, but here's the messed up thing, man. Like, so the conflict around the Clarity Act and stablecoin yield was that, hey, these stablecoin products are superior to traditional banking products. And so the banks couldn't have that. And because they have these, well-paid lobbyists with unlimited checkbooks who basically bribe our Congress people, because of these lobbyists, just yesterday, Tuesday, um, this is what they did. They reviewed a draft of this new Clarity Act, which seeks to ban passive yield on stablecoins. So, what would be prohibited in the latest version of this Clarity Act would be direct interest or rewards that are, quote unquote, economically equivalent to bank interest. And what would be permitted would be, quote unquote, activity based rewards linked
Mhm.
to payments, loyalty programs, or platform usage. And so Circle took a dive yesterday. It was down 20% at one point. Um, but here's the thing, man. Um, I think that people just don't understand that it doesn't matter what these legislators say.
Yeah,
Because if you don't want to comply, man, then you don't need to comply. And so all that's going to happen is this draconian legislation, which, takes choice away from the American consumer. Like,
mhm.
if I'm an American, bro, I should have access to these superior products. And my Congress people should be there representing me, not banks. Okay? Like, make that make sense. And so these Congress people are completely bought and paid for. And that's why they're even talking about banning the ability for American citizens to have access to these superior products. You know who's going to get access to these products? People in Asia, people in South America, but not people here in America. And that's
Well,
not acceptable, man.
people that don't use VPNs are not going to be able to. So mostly older people, people that aren't very tech savvy. It's basically just going to cut them out of it and keep them a slave to the system. To put it bluntly,
Yeah.
and that's what they want. I mean, it's this system, with the Federal Reserve and with banks, and I mean they've had a monopoly forever, and they're not going to give that up quietly. They're going to use every bit of influence that they have in Washington D.C. to make sure that they're the ones that profit and off of our money and our assets, not us. They don't want us. They want us to have to go through them to get a loan on our home, or if we want a home equity, a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. They don't want us to be able to go and use a tokenized, deed, tokenized real estate, and get a loan from. I could get a loan from David, for my property if he wanted to provide the liquidity, peer to peer. I mean, what is more, liberty based and freedom based than that?
Yeah.
People helping other people, and it's all because of the technology, because of the code. It makes it to where if I default on that loan, David owns my property. That digital ownership would transfer to David, just like it would for a bank.
I,
Except
I,
it's
I
more.
uh, I like owning property. Can I
I
have some of
love
that property?
Prabhupada. That's how I made most of my money is in Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Well, David, do you want to introduce Sean, and then we'll get into our topic for today, which is because I really want people to start to understand DeFi and some of these protocols. I really want to focus on the protocols that you and Sean see, and I apologize if it's seen. I always get confused when people spell it the way that you do, but
Sean. Yeah.
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, I can jump in here, man. So Sean, Sean was one of my favorite clients when we worked together over at the old program that I used to run. And,
I'm honored.
dude, it was great. I remember a couple of times we were opening positions together and just running through that stuff, man. It was so much fun. I had such a great time talking to you and working with you. And then you ended up working with us, and you helped a lot of people build skill sets in crypto and DeFi. And you were one of the people that clients would ask to work with, which is, that's vouching for your skill, man. So that's pretty cool. And, what I know of you is that you are a professional DeFi operator, and you have built a top tier skill set over the course of years and years. And so, I think what we're going to do here is just chat crypto and DeFi, right? Because that's what we do. Whenever we're on calls together, we can talk this stuff for hours, man. So what's on your mind? You want to maybe introduce yourself to everyone watching a little bit?
Sure. I think that's a plenty good introduction, David. And if you guys have to know, you have one of the best in the industry with David. So those of you that do tune in, I'm not as familiar with Mike. What I've seen has been good. That's not a slam on you at all, Mike. But what you guys are building here has captured my.
I'm a guy learning DeFi. I'm not an instructor or an expert or anything like that. That's why we got David.
Hey, that's okay. Everyone starts at ground zero. And like David said, I was a client of his, and I started at ground zero. And yeah, I feel like I adapted quickly, took it up quickly. And, my background is education, where I teach others, and that's my passion, and that's a skill set of mine. But I find when you go to teach it, you learn it 10 times faster, 10 times deeper. And so what I would challenge anyone that's trying to grasp any of this is teach it to your dog, teach it to a mirror, teach it to a spouse or a friend or a significant other. Because when you have to grasp a concept enough to explain your position, explain your why, explain what's happening, you're going to get a much better understanding of what you're doing and much higher conviction too. But yeah, so my background, education, been doing DeFi for years now and love it. I do see it as the frontier. I do see it as the now, as the future, as long as restrictions don't get us, right? Being in the US. I reside in the US as well. I'm in the St. Louis region. So kind of fun.
I was born there.
Oh yeah. That's great.
Well, south of there, Piedmont, Poplar Bluff area.
Yeah, I know Piedmont. Yeah, I was actually supposed to be down there tomorrow at a camp down there, but I'm not going anymore. But
beautiful area. I love
really
Missouri.
is, man. Yeah, some great parks and stuff in Missouri. But yeah, so I've got a few things I want to show today. Really, one of them I kind of teased on yesterday's live. I was in the chat and I said, "Hey, I'd love to show more of a TradFi play. So if I can have 10 minutes later or now, I'd love to show a play that I'm really liking in an IRA."
Yeah. Sean, why don't you share your screen and we can maybe walk through it together right now?
Yeah, let's bonk through it. Now it has a crypto tie. It has a direct crypto tie. And some people may have heard a little bit of this play. I know you guys have talked about Stretch.
Sure.
Stretch is a play from the MicroStrategy camp, right? It's one of Saylor's newest mechanisms, and guys, it is printing Bitcoin. Look at this, the Bitcoin drip, 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 drip. But this is a mechanism that's just absolutely incredible. But there's another one called SATA. And here's what's interesting is that when you look at these two, they each pay out a dividend. They each pay a dividend monthly. But the truth is, one, you have to be in by the end of the month. and the other one you have to be in by the middle of the month. So what I've done, I've built out a one-pager strategy here that talks about a rotation within your IRA. And as long as you don't lose too much on the buy, and right here, this site, strc.live, is going to show you the current price of each asset. So for example, these want to trade at $100. They adjust their dividend yield accordingly. They'll reduce it if the price goes above. They'll increase the yield if the price goes below 100. And the whole point is to bring that peg back to 100. And so what we can do within an IRA or a Roth IRA or something that is tax deferred, put it that way, is we can trade between these two assets. And I've estimated it out. We can get roughly 19.8% yield every single month. Now, here's the thing. Both of these are based upon a yield that's paying out from them buying Bitcoin. They are accumulating more Bitcoin. Yeah, they try to keep a price floor. Yeah, we've got, 2 phases, but essentially with 24 trades a year within your IRA, and I use Vanguard for mine, you can accrue roughly 20% APY on your account. And 24 trades, guys, that is nothing, but there are some rules.
I'm sorry, but what is the risk like on this? Because 20% is huge, Mike.
Yeah, let's talk risks. So let me just zoom in a little bit here if I can.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to derail you. I'm just I'm kind of amazed that you can buy these stocks. These 2 stocks earn 20%. It seems relatively, basic, and it doesn't seem like there'd be a whole lot of risk involved.
Yeah, the risk is that Strategy stops buying Bitcoin and Strive stop buying Bitcoin. We can't have them stop buying Bitcoin. Now, we are in a bear market. Their Bitcoin purchasing could go down, but these 2 assets are purchasing mechanisms for them. These are intentional stocks to where they're taking it and they're buying more Bitcoin. They're taking the stocks that they sell, the money that they raise from that sale, and they are buying more Bitcoin. So a few risks, I've kind of outlined those here. Number one, these are tied to Bitcoin 100%. If the cycle crash drops, the price drops of these, because the value, they may not be able to pay the dividend. If people are selling their stock because they've lost hope in Strive or in MicroStrategy, one of these 2 businesses, if too many people are selling the stock and it can't sustain its price, and they just can't get that dividend up high enough, and it keeps going lower and lower and lower, that's a risk. Dividends are variable. They could be cut to 0 at any time. Something could be announced, they could cut it. It's best used in an IRA. I put Roth here. That's false. Really, just an IRA in general, because it's tax-free growth right now. We pay taxes deferred on a traditional IRA, and on a Roth IRA, we would pay 0 taxes in this. But there's no wash sale. There's no wash sale. Wash sale meaning I have to pay taxes on the stock sale itself, not just on the dividend yield. But SATA has a price floor of 100. STRC does not. Now they do, but they both can trade separately, and you can see they both try to keep that price floor of 100. So that's technically not true. I probably need to alter that line item. But these are not FDIC insured. Basically, you never want to invest what you can't lose. If these go to 0, you would lose all your stock. And so I'm waging that Strive and MicroStrategy will stay afloat. They will continue to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin won't drop to 0. I'm in a Bitcoin play. So I'm in a crypto play in TradFi, earning 20% yield. Does that make sense a little bit more?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at this, and I've got a couple spreadsheets that I've thrown together where I can literally track this. But let's say I start with $10,000. Let's say I want to make a monthly contribution. I can set a target retirement date. It bases its estimate off of 19.8%. That's factoring in for some loss, because what you'll notice is a rotation. The rotation happens in these 2 assets. Now, if I come to strc.live, I can click on the STRT button. I can go to a 30-day, and this is going to show me the stock price over 30 days. We can see it's up over 100. It's down. And right here is right after the dividend is locked in. We can see that people are selling, and they sell heavy, but it only lost its peg 50 cents. off the 100. Right down here,
Mhm.
60 cents. Right down here, 60 cents roughly. Now, here's the key, though. We have to be able to buy low, sell high when we can. If I come to SATA, look at this, $94, $95, $98, $97, because people are buying the stock back up. But here's the key. I only need to hold SATA before March 31st. If I hold it on March 31st at the close of business, I get the dividend. I get it. I don't have to hold it for the entire month. I don't have to really hold it for more than a day. So what I can do is I can watch this price, set a limit order within my IRA, and I can buy SATA before the 31st. And then what I can do is set a limit order, a sell order, to sell it at a higher price as I can get. And then I set another limit order once it's sold on STRC. And I have to hold that by April 10th. And then I sell STRC before April 30th, and I buy SATA, and I just flip.
So basically, you're rotating every 2 weeks, basically.
Rotating. Yep. And I'm getting the dividend of both of these. And the corrosion happens here. When I lose in the price drop, that's it. That's it.
You're basically farming the dividend.
I'm farming the dividend, and this is brilliant. And I'm helping Strategy buy more. I'm helping Strive buy more. I'm helping the Bitcoin economy as a whole. So again, I've got this here where you can track your trades. You put the date in, you put the action. I bought SATA. I bought 161 shares, and so on. Right. So you can go through this. I can share this. I don't know how. We can put it in the comments.
Is there some place that people can get the spreadsheet, or?
Yeah, I've just made these on my own. This one's a little bit more advanced. I can, if we can put them in the chat, I'm happy to share these.
So Sean, if you put that in the chat, I can turn that into an interactive web application.
Are you serious?
So yeah.
Well, if you don't mind, Sean, I mean, I would love to add that to the Node.pro once we get all the tools that David's been building.
Let's do it. Yeah, because here's the thing is that there's so much tracking that we do. And if I could have one place to just track my traditional finance, track all my strategies. I heard it in one of your guests last Friday, the gentleman who has the new software where you're tracking SUI and Solana. He says SUI. I say SUI.
Block
right?
turtle.
Yeah, block turtle. But if I could bring traditional finance mechanisms like this and marry the two, because I look at my portfolio as a whole. I'm not all in on crypto. I'm not all in on TradFi for sure. But if I can marry the two, that's beautiful. But guys, look at this compounding. Years of growth, 10,000 over 20 years turns into 370. Now, I can't guarantee Strive and MicroStrategy will still be buying Bitcoin and paying out 11%, 13% yields. I can't guarantee that. But what if something else exists then? What if this changes even for the bear market, even for the next 6 months? Because then what can I do? I can go buy a Bitcoin ETF. I can buy a Sol ETF. I can buy an ETH ETF, and I can just ride those in my market, because if I believe in Bitcoin, I don't want to just buy a strategy that's accumulating more Bitcoin that's only going to give me 11.5% per year. If I believe in Bitcoin, I've got to do better than 11.5% per year. MicroStrategy is betting on that.
Well, you could do this until you feel like we hit the bottom. David, thinks in October.
Yes.
That we're going to hit the
August,
bottom.
October. August, October is my window, guys. And it could come early. It could come a little bit late November. We could just accumulate till next spring. It doesn't matter, though.
Then you just use this as dry powder to buy the bottom, ride it up, and rinse and repeat.
Have you talked to anybody that bought at 21,000 in 2022? And they're like, oh, I only bought at 21,000. Okay, you missed 15, 16. Big deal. Big deal. Guys, if you can't buy the absolute bottom, who cares? We might see a 7x on Bitcoin again from the bottom. We might see 300K this next bull run. Or it might go an ABC pattern and Elliott wave and just be boring this next cycle. Who knows? But cycles tell us that we're going to see a really nice move up from Bitcoin. Will we see it from altcoins? I highly doubt it. Highly doubt it. But we're going to see a nice move up. So the one that's a little bit more busy, I guess you can say, is this one where it's got just a whole lot more to it, right? We've got my growth map, we've got know the risks, and I kind of put in here, what if yields are cut? I've got all sorts of different factors in here. We don't really need that, but this is just for me because I'm a nerd. I like numbers, quick references, right? When I buy SATA, these are some of my hard rules because I have been doing this in my own portfolio for a couple of months now. I have seen the success. And my yield has been around 20%, 19.8%. Okay. So that's why I built this. You can start here. You enter your information. You go. You just go. How much do you have? What's your age? What's your target retirement? How much monthly contribution? And that's it. And then you're logging it in trade log and it's updating all this information on the dashboard. How am I doing? Am I on track? All of this,
So
it's updated
this
for you.
is so important to track your investments, to know how they're performing. Because otherwise, you might as well throw a dart at a dartboard.
Yeah. And look at this, guys. What could I withdraw at retirement? The key is against the traditional 4% rule, right? Go into bonds. Go in a little bit in the S&P and some, stocks, but be in bonds. Okay, I can withdraw 4%. My goodness, guys. My goodness. Not enough. Not enough. What if you could withdraw 10 and live off 10 and still accumulate an additional 10? This is where it's at. And right now, if I had a retirement that I was withdrawing from, I would have a portion, not all, but a portion of my portfolio doing this strategy. Not financial advice. I'm not a certified financial planner. I can't give you that. But just know this is a mechanism that is real. It's real yield. And right now, if you use it the right way, you can see major gains. Do I even DeFi? Yeah. Follow and share, guys. This is the kind of stuff you're not going to get anywhere else.
She's asking everybody out there, because the info,
right?
that alpha that you're giving
they
out.
They need to follow and share this. More people need to be watching this. This is free right now, guys. Think about that.
Well, and this is the time. The bear market is the time to be educating yourself like this because there is a lot more opportunities in the bear market than there are in the bull market.
Yeah. Agreed. And here's the thing, guys. This is such an important strategy.
I don't agree. What are you talking about? There's so many more opportunities in a bull. Like when everything's going up, all you got to do is buy and do nothing. Like right now.
Well, no, but in the bear market is where you educate yourself, you position yourself, you buy the bottoms, or buy at a discount, and then when the bull market comes, if you're set up properly and educated properly, then you just sit back and do nothing.
True.
Your money's made on the
entries. The entries, right?
Money's made on the entry, guys. So you make your entry at a decent price on Stretch, on SATA, and you're doing pretty well in traditional finance. Because
hold on, it just dawned on me what David meant. He meant there's more money to be made.
Yeah,
that's it. It's the bear is where you position yourself. The bull is when you profit and you reap the rewards of the preparation in the bear. Okay,
exactly.
I get it.
Exactly.
It took me a second. Sorry.
It's a little bit, it can be kind of boring in a bear market when you're sitting around waiting to, enter a position or start entering a position. Now, Sean, I'm taking a look here at Stretch and SATA, right? And there are definitely some big advantages of wrapping those products in a Roth IRA, right? Big tax advantages. But it looks as though, if I just read through what I was taking a look at here, it looks as though maybe those, Congress people and bank lobbyists are talking about Stretch and SATA today during that House Financial Services Committee hearing. And they're talking about Stretch and SATA trying to decide if these instruments should be the only legal way to earn quote unquote crypto interest in the US. Whoa. So whoa is right. And dude, do we even have Congress people that represent us anymore? Is that even a thing? What? These people in this hearing are determining what products you are going to have access to.
My children too.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Because one thing I found when these laws pass, guys, we have laws that passed 100 years ago that still determine. That's where this stablecoin yield is coming from. Is a law passed over 100 years ago by the Rothschilds and others, still in law today. Are they still relevant? I don't think so.
Well,
But
they don't
screw us
clean
over
up
for
old
decades.
laws. They just stack laws on laws on laws.
No. Guys, if this passes today, makes me livid, really.
Yeah, man. I mean, so the regulatory classification, so Stretch and SEDA, they're registered SEC securities and they trade on a national exchange in the NASDAQ. So they currently are the safe haven for institutions. But this Clarity Act is going to determine if other tokenized assets can follow this same blueprint without that heavy burden of a full equity IPO. I mean, think about all the rebasing, yield bearing assets in DeFi that would suddenly become securities and essentially like become illegal, unregistered securities overnight if this current iteration of the Clarity Act were to pass. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of dubious of whether this Clarity Act is going to be able to pass at all, simply because if the Senate, if they can't even pass the SAVE Act, which most Americans want, voter ID, if they can't even pass that, then there's no way that they're going to be able to come together to pass the Clarity Act in time. And if it gets to like the end of May, then guess what? We're not passing anything because, you know, senators and Congress people are going to be much, much too focused on getting reelected come November to actually sit down and do their jobs. So it's not going to happen, man.
David, not Scoop Boy asked, you know, how would that affect LSTs?
That's a good question. You know, so I think, and this is just like, I'm not positive on this, of course, right? But there are 16 digital assets that were granted like, you know, digital commodity status by the almighty SEC and CFTC. Like, yes, Domini Patre, blah, blah,
Yes,
blah,
dude,
blah,
just
blah,
on
blah, blah.
yeah.
Like, I knight
Ominous,
thee,
ominous.
digital commodity, stand Cardano. Like, give me a
Yeah,
break, man. Like they put some real dog shit coins in there.
yeah, they did.
But you know, so
And they put Dogecoin.
yeah, so you know what? I think like if I'm understanding this right, it's going to be something like this. If you're one of those digital commodities, then you can stake your coin and earn that yield. And because it's a commodity, that's not a security. So that's legal. But you know, if you weren't anointed, you know, onto that list of the Sweet 16, then hey man, if you got SUI LSTs, those might become illegal, unregistered securities. I don't know how that's going to be handled, but yeah. What do you guys think about that? Your SUI LSTs, that yield that you get, might become like completely illegal. What does that mean? You know, like, does that mean that if
Means
you're a
I'm moving
US
to another country.
no, but like if you're a US citizen, right, and you hold one of these coins that didn't make it onto the Sweet 16, and
Yeah.
you're earning yield, you know, just native yield holding an LST, does that make you like non-compliant and a criminal overnight? Is that what happens? Like, how do you report that? If you report that, are you going to get prosecuted for reporting that? Like, how does that work, man? And why do we
we need
even
to get together as crypto, you know, in crypto and like buy a small country and just all move there and just make our own laws, you know, just say screw it.
I mean, look, man, I think that, you know, the entire idea that you have to comply with this is some nonsense. That's what I think. But, you know, look, if they're going to send men with guns to your house if you don't comply, well, then you're kind of stuck, dude.
Yes and no.
I mean, it's extortion, is what it
Oh,
is.
it
You know,
is. It is.
if the mafia
Anything.
did it,
Well, anything that the government does where it requires them to use force against American citizens, you know, it really is extortion. Taxes. You know, the fact that they don't, you know, supposedly they don't know how much you owe, but they want you to guess, and they can just arbitrarily say, "Nope, you're wrong." It's like, okay, then how much do I owe? Well, we don't know. Okay, so how am I wrong? Oh, we just decided you're wrong, and you know now you owe us fees and penalties, and if you don't pay that, we're going to seize all your assets and throw you in jail.
yeah, well, guess what? You can't seize Bitcoin private keys. You can't censor a private key.
And
So
that is why we are in crypto.
Bitcoin fixes this, man. Bitcoin fixes this.
Yeah.
And I love this play, Sean. Stretch and SATA and
Yeah.
farming the dividends. Dude, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It
And
is.
to get to
It really is.
20% in a Bitcoin bear market, pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. I really like it.
And that's the thing for me, guys.
It's a way to
play that's
generate dry
temporary.
powder. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say it's a way to accumulate when I think the business cycle and the equities is showing bearish. I think gold looks bearish. I think oil, honestly, could be bearish. We don't know what's going to happen with this war. And right now, the one sure thing I have is Stretch. They are aggressively buying Bitcoin. Aggressively.
You can always count on sailors.
Faster than ever. Faster than ever MicroStrategy is. And so I think there could be a little bit of a rotation into the strategy, MicroStrategy stock from this. And I think especially into some crypto stocks. Because what I've done is try to take some of my traditional portfolio. And if you have one too, an IRA, why not try this? Guys, I'm telling you, I've been executing it for a couple of months. It's so easy. It's so easy. Just be careful with your sell prices. Watch these stock prices. This is what will get you, is the stock prices being too low or whatever it might be. And you can see this one trades at 97. If we go back, it's trading in the 94s, 95s. You got to be careful selling too low or buying too high. That's where you can lose some of that spread and lose some of your yield. Okay.
But
so
with those limit orders, that you were talking about, using limit orders, just, set your limit order and be patient.
Yeah. Cause it's the trade one asset to the other. It's just like, we can talk about this with DeFi, but it's a price variance. If one stays at 100, one's at 93, man, the spread's too wide. I shouldn't do it. And if I'm selling at 93, buying at 100, I shouldn't do it. But if I'm selling at 100, buying at 93, execute. So you may have one or two trades a year, maybe more, where you don't do anything. You just hold. Why buy SATA if it's too high? Why buy Stretch if it's too high?
And you can still do that farming that you're doing with the dividends without buying and selling. If you have some of each of those stocks,
you just hold each. Yeah. And that would be a way to do it. You'd still get probably roughly a 12% yield, just holding 50-50 of each. So yeah,
I mean, it's just another option.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, we can change topics. I hope that was fruitful for some people.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, that was pretty cool, man. That was pretty cool. So Sean, what else are you looking at maybe in DeFi? In DeFi land?
So staying on the traditional finance stuff to start, guys, I'm really liking this one. So let's talk real quick about, let me maybe pull up a different browser because I've got to go VPN here. So Xstocks, and I don't want to turn my VPN on. I'll probably mess up with my video quality, but Xstocks is incredible. You guys, you may want to go and register.
No, you can go ahead and do your VPN. It'll just cut you out for a second and then you'll come back on.
We're good. I've got a whole different browser login that I'm rocking here. Right. So think about this with Xstocks. Right now, they have a 20% boost. If you just go to defi.xstocks.fi/points, really long name there, but you register your wallet. All you do is connect it once. You're set. You're earning an additional 20% points till eternity because you're an early adopter. And then what you can do, you can earn using a multitude of strategies. You could go to Buy Real. You could go to Camino. You could go to Piggy Bank. You could go to Radium. Here we go. That's not showing up. You can tell I go to Radium all the time.
So what Sean just did, don't do that. Don't go to Google and find links. Sean knows what he's doing.
I know
Sean knows what he's doing, but for anyone watching, don't do that. Yeah.
I just don't want to. Yeah. So anyway, what I can do is farm points, farm yield. And right now, when I have a really volatile market, volatile on gold, volatile on oil, volatile on equities, volatility on crypto, what has the highest volatility of those? You may answer gold right now. You may answer silver right now. That's not wrong. Oil. Yep. And so when I can farm volatility by liquidity providing, oh my goodness, it's great, but not really. What if I could farm less volatility and get great yields still? I can come to something like Buy Real, which is paired with Bybit, but these guys have partnered with Xstocks, and Xstocks also is with Kraken. So I'm kind of like, where's the parity there? Where does that make sense? But I can come on to buy real and I could liquidity provide the SPY, the S&P, a variant of it, right? And so I could copy other strategies. And I love this. This is pretty cool. It's almost like revert finance. If you guys are at all familiar with that, it shows you other positions. It shows you their real yield, their real P&L. And you make your money on the entry. That's why you're seeing some of these for 73 days just down. They're down. The stock market's down.
So what is that, like copy trading or something like that? Or?
Yeah, it's copy trading, essentially copying a position. I wouldn't do that, but it's a nice tool. It's a nice tool to see. But let's go ahead and open up SPY on buy real. And I'm going to fly through these guys, but I'm going to cover some of my favorite options. So we'll go to SPY. I've done Tesla. I've got a position on Tesla. I've got a position on the S&P 500. Okay, let's go ahead and add liquidity. And what we'll do is we'll set a range that's nice and wide for volatility. We'll go like 12% down and about 12% up. Why not? Why not? That gets us to about 73.40 on the S&P and down as far as 57.50. It may go down further than that in this business cycle. But look at that. I'm making 17.
It's still like 18%.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Don't be scared of wide ranges.
And that's the thing. And all I would want to do is just hold this. Even if I go out of range to the downside, I could still just hold and exit on my entry and have earned roughly 17% yield. But these are being incentivized in other ways. Right now, X stocks is incentivizing you. If you hold and provide liquidity on that, you're going to get points. Let's say it's worth a 5% yield. So 17 plus 5, I'll take that. That sounds phenomenal. And all I have to do, it doesn't depend on your range. You just have to be providing liquidity. It doesn't even say be in range. And I'm earning points. And you can track them on here. I just can't get it to work right now.
No, that's interesting. That the fact that you can still be earning yield and not be in range.
Well, no, I'm earning points for X stocks, not yield.
Wait, what are the points?
Yeah, so points are going to contribute to a future airdrop. And if we think about it this way, if we have an asset class that is tens of trillions in value, equities, and X stocks is one of the first, right now it's the largest held on chain. Mm-hmm. If I get in early with that and I get exposure to an ICO, initial coin offering, I have incredible opportunities to potentially make up big. I mean, we're talking hyper liquid, maybe not that big. It won't be that big. But again, let's say I get 2%, 5%, because there's some other plays. I want to cover those next. Let's go to Piggy Bank. Check this one out. This one's using a carry trade mechanism. I can earn 7% on the SPY, on the S&P. I get Oinks. Dumbest name you've ever heard of. Oinks, it's points. Oinks is points, right? And so I can earn 7% on the S&P just by holding. And again, I'm not a buyer here, but I might be very, very soon. I might be in the coming weeks. I can hold it as it rises back. I can earn 7%. I get 5 times points. I'm also getting X stocks points. Let's say this is worth 3%. Let's say X stocks is worth 5%. Just like that, I've stacked an additional 15% on the S&P when I bought the dip. You guys, where else can you get 12, 15?
Can you detail how that's structured really quick to where you're having exposure on both platforms and able to stack like that? Because I just want to make sure people understand the how important or the profitability of this.
Yeah, sure. So think about it like this: when things are on chain, it's a ledger, it's public. Anyone can track my movements. They can see holdings. They don't know who I am. It doesn't say Sean Romer, their public wallet, right? It doesn't say that. But
your wallet address.
Yeah, these protocols are tracking my wallet. And so they know what I'm holding. They know where I'm deposited. And they can track that. And so I'm getting points by using Piggy Bank. And Piggy Bank's growing in a really responsible way, by the way. They're slowly raising this cap in their assets. And they plan on bringing on additional assets. Right now, it's just the S&P. It's Jitto Sol. You can get roughly 10% on Solana here, but it's a carry trade. So what they're doing, I'm getting exposure to Piggy Bank. I'm getting exposure to X stocks because they say, hold the stock. And they say, hey, we've partnered with Piggy Bank. You're going to get even more points. If you're holding the stock, you're going to get even more. If you're on Piggy Bank, you're going to get even more if you're providing liquidity. They're going to incentivize liquidity provision for points the most. Things like Radium, Buy Real, and Orca.
So the steps would
Double
be
dipping.
so the steps would be provide liquidity here with that wide range that you were showing, earning
Sure.
about 18% plus the points.
Yep.
And then over on Oink, because you provided liquidity, you are holding the SPY, the XSPY. It sees your wallet, and it basically allows you to earn the points there as well. Correct?
So I can't double dip in that way. What I can double dip on is the holding X stocks period, going
Okay.
on to piggy bank, or holding X stocks, providing liquidity, holding X stocks, providing liquidity, that sort of thing. Or this
Yeah.
one's interesting. Let's go with me here just for a second. What I can do is come to Camino and I can go to borrow. And they have an X stocks button right here. I can click on X stocks and you'll see that they have the S&P. Right now you're getting 2%, 2%, 2%. So what Piggybank's doing, Piggy Bank, they're taking your S&P that you've deposited, they're depositing it on here, and they're borrowing against it. And they're doing a carry trade. They're doing arbitrage, because right now to borrow, they're only paying 3.3%. That's a pretty low borrow rate. Really low, actually. And they can go earn 10%, 15%, even just on Camino. So they are a 2-day lockup and a maximum of 2 to 4 days to withdraw on Piggy Bank, meaning I deposit it
Ooh,
here.
I don't like that at all.
Every 2 days, though, they take it and they deposit it to that strategy, earn that yield, and I have to wait 2 days to withdraw it. That's the only negative, David.
Yeah, that's
Only
that's kind of a killer for me. Like whenever
Yeah.
I see lockups like that and DeFi protocols, it's usually like
That's the
run
negative.
the opposite direction. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's for them to execute the carry trade to give you the yield, which I get, but it is a bummer. It is
That
a big time
signals
bummer. But
that signals a duration mismatch to me.
yeah. Well, they've taken my money though, just like a bank would, and they have gone and they're earning yield on it. That's how they're able to pass the yield back to me. These are the hoops we have to jump through and the price we have to pay sometimes to get a yield. And which is why, again, I like BuyReal. I like Camino. It's readily available because what I can do is lend at 2%, go borrow 20%. Look at this on the S&P. It's a LTV, loan to value, meaning how high would my borrow rate need to go against what I lent? It's over collateralized lending. May be confusing to most, but
So Sean, you see where it says supply APY and
Yeah.
it's 0.01%, but then it's plus looks like 2.1%. So those are I guess lending incentives,
Yes.
right? So USDC incentives. Okay, got it. So can you tell us a little bit about those incentives? Because usually those are temporary.
They are. Yeah. And so this one is incentivized by Camino, the 2.1%. And right now what they're doing is they're paying out $2,000 a week. And that's across all of these, an additional 2,000 for Master, 2,000 for Google, 2,000 for NVIDIA, 2,000 for Tesla. So each of these is its own isolated field, but this is incentive. This is the race that is taking place right now. Xstocks is trying to beat out Ondo. They're trying to beat out others. They're trying to beat out Hyperliquid. They don't want you to just go and trade on Hyperliquid. They want on-chain equities to come to Solana, to come to EVM, because Xstocks is on all those, right? I can go and look at their site and say, oh, look at this. I could trade physical Palladium shares. It's on Ethereum, it's on Solana, it's on TON, right? But they want their asset to win. And so what they do is they take some of their marketing money and instead of throwing a commercial on CNN, they'll partner with Camino and say, hey, let's incentivize this. That's what we're seeing here with 0.01%. That's Xstocks incentive.
So wait here. Can you pause here for a second, Sean? So you see where it says plus 2.1% and 2,000 USDC weekly.
Yeah.
So if you go back and just pause here for a second, you see the total supply just in the SPYX market looks like 6.2 million. Mm-hmm. So if there's $6.2 million of supply earning 2,000 USDC per week, doesn't that mean that those incentives are exhausted like almost immediately at the start of a new week?
It has to be.
Well, but that doesn't that mean that there's no way that you could actually get 2%? Because if the incentivization program is only 2,000 USDC per week, is that for each individual market? It must be. But if there's $6 million lent in the market, then that 2,000 in interest, like incentivization, would be, paid out probably within the first couple of hours, of the start of the
You'd
new
think.
week, right?
Yeah. You're actually right. I haven't looked
Not
at that
sustainable.
in depth.
Yeah, not
It doesn't
sustainable
seem
at all.
sustainable.
It's like not real, because if it's true that
Mhm.
it's 2,000 a week, but there's 6.2 million in the market, then we could find out how quickly those 2,000 would be exhausted. So that just basically means that you might not get
Yeah.
any yield at all, right? Isn't that kind of what
Right.
that means?
I think so. Now this was
Yeah.
2.9 just a week ago, so it is going down. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't know. I haven't done the math.
Well, and maybe those incentives aren't just from that. I mean, and I'm just spitballing here, but maybe
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
paying for those incentives in other ways.
I don't like that though. And David,
Yeah.
I
leave
don't.
it to you to
I
be
don't.
suspicious.
Oh
You
yeah.
always find the what if.
Oh yeah. And so you want some more suspicion? Here, let's go on over to BuyReal. Let's go on over to BuyReal.
Yeah.
Okay, so over here on BuyReal, now it's saying the estimated APR, and this is again based on your fees. Okay, so it's 17%. And then Sean, I think that you mentioned that there's a points program, an Xtox points program, but you have no idea what those points are actually worth, because
Right.
you don't even know if they're going to run an airdrop. You don't know when or if they're going to do that. So you have no idea the value of those points. Highly speculative, potentially worth
Highly
zero. So I'm just going to throw the points in the garbage for the moment. And if
Okay.
we're just looking at the estimated fee APR, so let's talk about the risk of providing concentrated liquidity. Let me start by posing a question to you guys. If concentrated liquidity provision was a money printer, do you not think that Goldman and JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley would have $100 billion liquidity provision positions, right? Don't you think that these big guys would be jumping into this stuff hand over fist if it was like a money printer?
Well, real quick, I would say yes and no, because I mean, and I could be mistaken, but the fact that there's not legislation and their assets under management, aren't they kind of hamstringed on what they can do with that liquidity?
Sure, you're right, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I want to be able to talk about how liquidity provision can be structurally unprofitable. Here's how. When you provide liquidity, you're basically trading an option. This is a derivative. You're basically short a put. You have a very similar payoff profile to being short a put. The only time you want to sell puts is when volatility is elevated compared to the realized volatility. So that gives you what's referred to as a volatility risk premium. Now, the same thing is true over here when we provide concentrated liquidity. So when we provide concentrated liquidity, we are, for all intents and purposes, especially when you pair with a stable coin, you're basically short a put. And so being short a put means a couple of things. You have positive deltas. This is the big one, you're negative gamma. So your negative gamma, that's really important. Your positive theta, that's your fees. Your theta is your fees. Your gamma, that's your impermanent loss. And then your short volatility, which is your vega. And so the thing to understand about liquidity provision is that the pools, the tokens in the pools, don't know what the price is external to the pool. The only way the pool knows the price is because arbitrageurs buy and sell the tokens in the pool against their positions external to the pool. Now, here's why, over a long enough period of time, liquidity provision is structurally unprofitable. Because your gamma risk, that impermanent loss risk, especially when you pair with a stable coin, your theta, your fees, are unlikely to cover that over a long enough period of time. And also, the volatility of the assets in the pool is almost always lower than it is for those same assets external to the pool. And so that is structural unprofitability. What that means is you have a negative variance risk premium. And so you can think about this in a couple of ways. Over a long enough period of time, you're likely to be unprofitable as a liquidity provider. But for a short period of time, as long as your theta, your fees, is greater than your gamma, your impermanent loss, then you're profitable. But stretch it out over a long enough period of time, it's much more likely that you are unprofitable long term as an LP because you have negative variance. So when I'm taking a look at something like this and I see, you know, SPY paired with a stable, the estimated fee APR is 14%. Number one, that's going to change based on volume in the pool. And number two, the moment that there's big volatility up or down, it doesn't matter, up or down, your gamma, because you're short gamma, is that loss, that impermanent loss, is likely going to be greater than whatever fees you earned, unless the fees just go through the roof because the volume goes through the roof, but you have no control over that. You're just gambling on there being consistent volume in a pool. And BuyReal is, you know, this DEX is pretty new. You know, they released this a couple of months ago. It's gained a lot of traction because Bybit is a very popular protocol, and you know, BuyReal, of course, is attached to Bybit, and they are offering all of these unique products. You know, these you know, X stocks, liquidity pools, super cool product. But if you pair with a stable, you know, these are basically like impermanent loss factories. You know, these stable coin LPs like this. And when you make your range more narrow, that makes you more short gamma. Okay. So your short gamma, that's your big risk. That's your big risk. Because the moment there's some real volatility in that underlying asset, and in this case, it's SPYX, the moment there's some real vol, all of a sudden your impermanent loss explodes because you're short gamma. And then your theta, your fees, likely won't cover it. So yeah, you got to be really careful. And when you make your ranges super narrow like this, plus or minus 5%, you might look at the estimated fee APR and think, oh my goodness, I can do 40% in this.
No.
But you can't, it's not, it's almost an illusion. So yeah, you got to be really, really careful with these CLPs. Yeah, so that's what I would say about that. So the piggy bank thing, Sean, I really like the idea of, you know, essentially either looping or performing some type of, you know, positive carry trade on the X stocks. But I'm not quite sure exactly how that works. You know, where the yield really comes from. And I don't like the lockup period. The lockup period, that can be a killer. Especially for, you know, piggy bank, this is a brand new protocol, is it not? Yeah. So there's a couple of red flags here. Number one, brand new protocol. It looks great. It looks great though. Number two, the lockup periods. That's, you know, lockup periods. That's a non-starter for me. And then number three, it's a little bit unclear to me exactly where the yield is coming from. Like, because the underlying dividend yield for the SPY is like a little bit greater than 1%. So how in the world are they saying a 7% APY on, you know, and even the 30-day APY they're saying is 9.56%. So yeah, I would really want to dig into that and learn about how they're generating this yield. Yeah, so we need a little bit more information there. If you scroll down the carry trade strategy, okay. So this is kind of what we need, but we need numbers attached to it. Like this is great, but you know, need to see some numbers attached to it. So there's not quite enough data there. What about the audits? You see where it says security? Let's take a look at Piggy Bank's audits. You know, maybe they were audited by Piggy Bank Auditing Co. You know, so, yeah. So who is this?
Formal Land.
Who the hell is Formal Land?
Oh, you don't know them? That's Bill and Jim.
Ah, but Bob and Ted. Yeah, Bob and Ted's Audits LLC.
Bob and Ted LLC.
I mean, so Formal Land. Now you got me curious. Who is?
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah. So tell me about Formal Land, the DeFi and crypto auditing firm. So, this is something that is super, super important because, I don't know how many single lines of code they're running on those smart contracts to make that
Right.
work. But dude, it's expensive to get a real good audit done.
Yeah.
I'm talking like $150,000 to audit a protocol like that. So it says Formal Land is a specialized high assurance security firm that focuses on formal verification for blockchain protocols. Okay, so it says unlike traditional auditing firms that rely on manual eyes on code reviews by humans, Formal Land uses mathematical proofs to verify that a program's code matches its intended logic with 100% certainty across all possible execution cases. Okay, so that sounds really interesting. Sounds really cool. So maybe Formal Land is great. I don't know.
A bunch of buzzwords, it sounds like.
Yeah, it does kind of sound like buzzwords a little bit. So tell me about their reputation and the people on the team. That's really what I want to know about. Like, who have they audited? The people that built Formal Land, who are they? What's their background like? So the team is academic and specialist enterprise, it looks like. They're not a high volume audit shop. And let's see here. It looks like they've got a couple of guys here we could look up if we wanted to. Guillaume Claret, it looks like, is the founder and lead engineer. And it says here that he's a prominent figure in the ROCQ, COQ ecosystem. Not quite sure what that is. He spent years at INRIA, a prestigious French national institute. Well, it's French, so you already lost me there, dude. But reputation in the industry, high assurance standard, open source leadership, yada, yada, yada. So it looks like they've done some work with Tezos. Aleph was actually kind of an interesting protocol during this. It's been around for a while. It looks like they may have done some work with the Ethereum Foundation. So yeah, that is, it seems like a legitimate auditing firm, but I don't know, man. I don't know. It looks like an interesting idea. And Sean, I'm really happy that you presented those X stocks, man. Those are super cool. You know what's going to be great in the future is when we get on-chain origination.
Ooh.
So that, because the X stocks, man, they're mirrored. It's like, you've got the underlying asset, that stock held at a broker dealer somewhere, and then they
you mean like the finality is actually like accomplished, like whenever you buy and sell, that finality.
No. So what I mean is the X stocks themselves, they are mirrored assets. So if you've got one share of stock at a brokerage account somewhere, they then mint one of those X stocks tokens against it. It's mirrored. But on-chain origination would be literally an on-chain IPO, where your company goes public on-chain and you mint your stock, those securities, natively on-chain origination.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. We're basically, there isn't a traditional version of the stock. It just exists on chain to where when you're buying and selling, you're actually buying and selling instantly that stock, and there isn't a lag time or there isn't a representation. It actually is that stock.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's the thing. It's the asset. Yeah. Yeah, man. So piggy bank, X stocks, Camino. Those are really cool protocols, man. And there are some great arbitrage opportunities for stable coins that you can run on Camino.
For the last 35 minutes, let's dive into some of the protocols that are a little more battle tested, and kind of steer people in the direction of, and it's not a guarantee, but that have had multiple audits, that have deep liquidity reserves, that just you're comfortable with putting your liquidity there. Like maybe show us some of that.
Sure, 100%. Here, let me go ahead and share my screen, and we can hop into that. And, Sean, I'm curious to see what you think of this. So this is, some educational material that I created for a private client. I'm going to share my screen right now, and we're going to take a look at this. So, on the topic of all that interest rate arb and, delta neutral stuff, let's just take a look through this educational material that I produced. So, number one, if we're talking about audited, reputable protocols, we're probably going to be looking at this handful on EVM chains when it comes to, delta neutral strategies. So, think Aave and Morpho and Euler, and then maybe you want to build a bond ladder on Pendle, or maybe you want to automate the process of looping using Camino. So there's a handful of strategies that we could take a look at. And why don't we take a look at Aave? So on Aave, I know that Aave has been going through some controversy recently, but an Aave Go carry trade might not be a bad idea. So you supply a yield-bearing asset on Aave, something like USDS, let's say. That's Sky Money's, digital dollar. That is a yield-bearing asset, so maybe you're able to earn some rate of return that way. You deposit that into Aave B3, you earn the supply APY plus the native rebasing yield. And then you mint Go. So you're going to mint that stable coin, and you also need to hold some staked Aave to get discounts, so borrowing APY discounts. That's going to reduce your effective borrow cost, right? And so those, when you mint that stable, then you just go ahead and take that stable, stake it in the Go facility, and you're going to earn whatever that APY is there from their program. So you're basically layering yield on top of yield, but you're not going to be able to earn, like 20% doing something like this. Here's how you can earn 20%. Let's take a look at Pendle. So right over here, Pendle, this is like, here it says the institutional bridge for on-chain yield, but Pendle is really more like a crypto bond market. That's basically what it is. They use this SY wrapper. They call it a standardized yield wrapper on their custom Pendle AMM to strip yield from a yield-bearing asset. And you end up with two tokens, a principal token, that's like basically the zero coupon bond, and a yield token, that's the levered yield component. And so you can swap into these PTs, which are essentially like, crypto bonds, and then you can lever them up, you can loop them. And so that's an interesting opportunity. Now, before we talk about looping, we've really got to understand these three items, okay? We've got to understand how leverage and LTVs work together. And then we've got to understand how a health factor is calculated and what it actually means in the context of your position. Because if I had a health factor of 1.21, but I was supplying $10,000 of USDC and borrowing $7,000 of USDC, supplying and borrowing the same stable, well, a health factor of 1.21 is actually very healthy for a lend borrow position like that. But if I was supplying $10,000 of ETH and I had borrowed 7,000 USDC, well, then a health factor of 1.21 is like danger zone. You've got to take action now.
And is that due to the volatility, David?
That's because if I'm supplying a volatile collateral asset and borrowing a stable against it, that's actually a levered long position. Linear levered long position, just like, maybe trading perpetual futures levered long on margin, so it's the exact same thing. It's just that on a money market, the mechanics of operating on a money market make it seem like you're doing something different. Really, it's a levered position. So we've got to understand health factors. And then we've also got to understand these yield spreads, okay? So call it a carry, call it a basis, call it a spread, call it a NIM, whatever you want to call it. We've got to understand this. So if I'm earning 5%, let's say, on my collateral, and I'm borrowing at 3.5%, but I'm able to use, let's say, I'm trading stables, right? If I've got a 93% LTV, look at what happens to the max leverage I can run as my LTV, my max LTV increases. So at 82.5%, which is what you'll see for many markets that contain volatile assets. Now, if you're talking about like Solana or Ethereum or Bitcoin, it might even be lower than this. It might be in the 70s. And so if your max LTV is, let's say, 72.5%, the max leverage you can run on a loop, that's recursive lending, the max leverage you could run would be 3.6x. But if you're all of a sudden wanting to loop stables, well, usually the max LTV for stablecoin markets is going to be at or above 90%. So if your max LTV is now 93% and you're supplying stables, some type of yield-bearing stable, some type of wrapped token pegged to one, turned into a stable. Well, if you got a 93% LTV, all of a sudden you got 14x leverage available to you. So let's say that you've got 14x leverage available and you've got a spread of 1.5% or 150 basis points. See this leverage multiplier down here? Let's go ahead and move this to 14x. And let's just take a look and see, what does this look like? All of a sudden, you're doing 21%. And that's a really small spread, 150 basis points. Apply some leverage. All of a sudden, you're at that 20+% APY mark. So you've got to understand this stuff together, though. You've got to understand the LTVs and how that equates to leverage. You've got to understand how to, view the health of your position. So if your liquidation threshold, if your max LTV is 93%, your liquidation threshold is going to be a little bit higher than that, maybe 95%. So if we take the liquidation threshold up to 95%, and then we say, okay, I deposited 10,000 and I borrowed, 9,300 against it. Well, now that would be the 93% LTV. This would be the max borrow. So this would be running a cheat loop at 14x leverage. And so now all of a sudden your health factor is 1.02. That is, you're really, really pushing it. You're really pushing it. But that's how you can get that 21% APY. Now, let's say that you want to dial back the leverage a little bit. So you've still got access to this leverage, but maybe you don't borrow at max LTV. Maybe you borrow a couple of points below max LTV. Now, a 1.06 health factor on a levered stablecoin position doing, 21%. Let's say that you didn't borrow at the max and instead you borrowed at 90% LTV. You got 10x leverage. Well, let's go ahead and dial the leverage back a little bit. 10x leverage, you're doing 15%. Now, a 1.06 health factor, if you were supplying a volatile asset and borrowing a stable, this would be like danger, critical, you must take action, horrible. Yeah. But if you're supplying a stable and borrowing a stable, and even better, if those stables are correlated, maybe you're supplying the yield-bearing rebasing stable and you're borrowing the underlying, the same protocol tokens, well, then, 1.06 might actually be acceptable. And if you wanted to dial it back even further, well, then you're not going to be able to do that 15 or 20% APY. So this might actually be considered safe for a correlated stablecoin position. So now that we've gone through a little bit about leverage and health factors and yield spreads, look, this is a lot of information that I just threw at everyone. I threw this at everyone real quick. This is a lot of info, right? Why don't we go and see what this would look like in practice to actually, enter a position? What type of position would you actually want to run here? Okay, well, the first thing that we've got to do is we've got to head on over to Pendle and we've got to find a collateral asset. So I'm going to go ahead and hop on over here into Pendle real quick. And one thing to know about Pendle is that the majority of the liquid markets are on mainnet.
Are you able to zoom in a little bit, David?
Yeah, let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Okay, maybe even a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So the thing about Pendle is that the majority of these markets are actually on mainnet. There's like 75 markets with liquidity on mainnet. Now, we do see more and more markets popping up here every day, but Yeah, I would just say that if you're going to be on ETH mainnet, okay, if you're going to be on mainnet, then you've got to size your positions appropriately. Okay, so what that means is you
Because of
can't,
gas?
because of gas and potentially because of slippage, depending on the market that you enter. And these fixed APYs here, if I sort by fixed APY, and then I take a look only at stables and RWA assets, now all of a sudden we're talking about maybe 35%. But what chain is this on, and what is River? So this is on the BNB chain. This is, River is the protocol. You've really got to know.
Not all stable coins are made the same.
Right.
David's talked about this multiple times.
Right. But also notice the amount of time to maturity. So if there's only 6 hours to maturity, well, then you're going to be able to earn this 35% for the next 6 hours. Okay. So we're going to pass on that.
And it's not 35% for that 6 hours. It's 35% APR but only 6 hours of it.
Right. And
that's why it's so high. Those people have exited their position.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the yield, it accrues to the PTs more quickly the closer you get to maturity. Now, here's another market.
What type of window do you usually? Sorry, what type of window do you usually look for in these? For you to feel like that it's profitable to get into it.
It's got to be 60 days out. At least. I would really prefer to go, 60, 90, 120, 180 days,
So
something
the
like
longer
that. Not necessarily, because, keep in mind, most of these protocols are bullshit. Okay. So Resolve blew up the other day, dude. This protocol completely went to zero, if
because that exploit that we covered.
Yeah. If we take a look over here, on Dex Screener, let me see if I can bring up that Resolve USR. Is it starting to bounce back? That's crazy if people buy this thing. So here's
never count out degens, man.
I don't know, man.
Never count out degens.
So this was the protocol, the token USR, all the way back on March 22nd was that's 3 days ago. It was $175 million. And now it's sitting at 56 million on this aerodrome market, it looks like. But here's the thing, man. This protocol, they basically got exploited for all the money in the USR token, the wrap staked USR token, and
it was like 56 million.
And the RLP. So RLP was the defense fund, or I guess you could call it like the junior tranche. So RLP on Resolve, I don't see how this market is still active. It's got 14 days to maturity, and the PT, it looks like you can earn 33%. I don't see how this could be real, though. So you take a look at what
frozen them all. I think they froze.
Yeah, I think so. So that's definitely not tradable. So the bottom line here is when you're taking a look at this stuff on Pendle, you have really got to know what the underlying protocol is and what the tokens are and how they generate yield. So many of these things, like REUSD, for example, let's take a look at this one. So this is REUSDE and REUSD. So REUSD is the senior tranche. REUSDE is the junior tranche. Junior tranche, more risk, higher yield. Senior tranche, less risk, lower yield. But what in the world is REUSD? What do these guys do? They are reinsurers, and they generate yield that way. And so all of these quote unquote stable coin products that you see over here on Pendle, what these basically are like, a business, we call them protocols because they're in DeFi. A business generates yield doing some type of activity, and then they take that yield and wrap it up into a token, or sometimes more than one token. they peg those tokens to one arbitrarily. They could peg them to 1.567. It doesn't matter. They just arbitrarily peg them to one so they can call them stable coins, but they're not. That's not what these things are. They're more like a wrapped representation of a yield-bearing strategy pegged to one.
Well, and is that because of the fact that they're not backed? And and I kind of want to draw this distinction to make sure that people understand this. Whereas USDC is because it's compliant with regulation, it's backed 1-to-1 with either a US dollar or US dollar equivalent. But these you're saying aren't backed in the same way. They're backed by basically a volatile asset.
So, a stable coin, in my opinion, is something that is backed by fiat or backed by treasuries or backed by bonds, either cash or cash equivalents.
Yes.
So a fiat stable coin like USDT or USDC, now USDT has its own auditing problems, which I hope will be resolved, but USDC is backed by cash and cash equivalents. That is a cash alternative, in my opinion, USDC is. But when you start talking about something like USDE, well, you're talking about a quote unquote algorithmic stablecoin. Now, an algorithmic stablecoin is not a stablecoin in the same way that USDC is. USDE is a wrapped representation of the basis trade that Athena is running. Okay.
Fugazi.
Kind of, sorta. So if we take a look at REUSDE in SUSDE terms, this is that yield-bearing, rebasing stable. They call it a stable simply because it's pegged to one when they launch it, and then it accrues yield over time. So this is I keep getting market cap. I want price. There we go. So here's price. So you see how this thing started at, they launched it at, or this is where the data starts here. The data starts at $1.16. And because this is yield bearing and rebasing, number go up over time. But notice there are periods of extreme volatility for this thing. Mm-hmm. So, or at least in this pool on curve, there have been periods of extreme volatility. But here's the thing, this type of product, this is exactly what that Clarity Act legislation, the language in that legislation might outlaw. So this might become an unregistered illegal security, okay? Mm-hmm. Because this is,
really quick, can you detail like what would happen? If you were in a liquidity pool on this or on Pendle and you had this and all of a sudden they came out and said, okay, now this is unregistered security. What's going to happen to the price of this?
Oh man, I mean, well, you tell me. It could go down, maybe. That's definitely a possibility. Or people could say, hey, you know what? I don't care what the SEC and the CFTC and these bankers in Congress, because they're basically owned by whoever gives them campaign contributions. People could say, hey, I don't care what you say anymore. And I'm going to continue to hold these products regardless, or I'm going to move to a jurisdiction where I don't have to care what you say anymore.
I would love that be the case, but just judging from the past and just how emotional and reactive the markets are, and how skittish people are, I would guess that it would probably dump. That people would be getting out of it as fast as they could.
Well, if it were to do that, it would be an amazing opportunity because nothing really changed with the underlying fundamentals of the protocol or the business.
Absolutely. I want to make sure that people understand what influences, this asset.
Yeah, 100%. So, the cool thing about this market on Pendle is that there's some liquidity here. So there's 98 million in TVL across all of the markets on Pendle that contain these REUSD and REUSDE products, but there's $15.43 million of liquidity right here in this market on mainnet. So let's take a look and see what that could look like. Let's say that you wanted to take this REUSDE product and maybe you want to loop it. I wonder if you can. Maybe you can. See the Penco system? Yeah, you can't Term Max sucks. You can't do it on Term Max. Maybe there's another product that you can loop, because I want to just see if we can show what it would loop like. Okay, so here's on Morpho.
Nice.
All right. So this is not the best though. So Morpho uses, we got to bring it on back to the education here. So let's scroll up to the top and then let's hop on down to Morpho. You see, those markets on Morpho are great, but, and we got to scroll down here to take a look at the interest rate model. So Morpho uses this adaptive curve interest rate model, where they target a 90% utilization rate. And what that means is interest rates in a lot of those markets that contain PTs on Morpho can be very, very like cost prohibitive to borrow. It can be too expensive to borrow. And so if we're over here taking a look at the Penco system on Pendle, and we're saying, okay, I can supply this PT, and if we take a look at the APY on the PT, this is the implied 8.25%. Okay, great. So I'm earning 8.25% on fixed on my collateral. But then to borrow, I've got to pay 8.31%. Okay, that makes no sense. You can't do that. You can't do that. So it's not going to work. So this is out. But we've got to check the market on Morpho just to make sure, because sometimes the when you take a look at the Penco system on Pendle, it's not going to be right. So PTREUSDE, I think that's the ticker, and I'm going to share my screen in a second. I just want to find that REUSDE PT before I share my screen here. Okay, so let me hop on over here. I'm on Morpho. I'm in the Markets tab. In the search bar here, I just typed in PT because I'm looking for that specific PT. It's the REUSD PT market over here on Morpho. So I'm just going to scroll down. So it's probably PT-REUSD. There we go. Okay, so you can see the market size, the LT. These are the max LTVs, the collateral type. So this is looks like this is the PT maturing in June. And I bet, did this one already mature? Yeah, so 18 Ds. This means that this already matured, but there's still $45,000 of PTs in this market. People who have forgotten to, close and redeem.
Well, you can remember and give it to me.
I know, right? Here's the funky thing about Pendle, though. Like these people who are holding these matured PTs still, it's in Pendle's documents somewhere, but they make it's actually pretty ambiguous. Like it's vague. It's not exactly clear what this means. If you hold a PT past maturity for too long, Pendle can take it. Okay, so like that's my understanding anyway. Now I don't know what too long is. I don't know if after 6 months, if you're holding a matured PT, if Pendle can take it, or if it's after 6 years. But yeah, we got to clarify that in their documents, because that's not exactly encouraging.
You know what? We need to get somebody from Pendle on the show.
Yeah, that would be really cool. So here, this market on Morpho, check this out. So you can supply that June PT, and that June PT is earning, if we go back to the charts, the implied APY is 8.25%. So you can earn 8.25%, and then you can borrow some USDC against it. But if you're paying 8.43% to borrow, then you can't borrow very much against your PT and still have a positive spread. So you've just got to be really, really careful when you're looking at looping these PTs. So REUSD is going to be out. Let's go ahead.
Variable. That rate's variable.
You're right, Sean. Yeah,
it's too much to monitor for me in that sort of situation.
Yeah, no kidding, man. It's really a lot. So why don't we take a look? You see where it says top looping APY markets right up here? So we've got, this is Treasury Build. I think that this is Open Eden. Isn't this Open or Theo? Okay, Theo. So these are just, bonds. These are just treasuries. And if we take a look, that's not a good number, but that's okay. So the implied is 6.75%, let's call it. So if the implied is 6.75%, what can you borrow at? Well, if you're borrowing at it looks like 4.88% on Euler, all of a sudden you can loop that up to 34.5%. That starts to get muy interesante. Okay, very interesting. So let's take a look. This market over on Euler, it's saying that you supply the PT and borrow the underlying. But if it's saying the max ROE is negative, then maybe these data that we just saw over here on Pendle are inaccurate. So if I'm supplying my collateral at 6.66%, but I'm borrowing at 4.88%, that should be a positive spread. Let's just see what this looks like. So I'm over here on Euler now. This is Euler.finance. And Euler has a slightly different interest rate module than does Contango, or I'm sorry, Morpho. So if we go back on over here, Morpho has that adaptive interest rate module, which tries to keep the utilization at 90%. Euler is a little bit different. Euler V2, these are both modular architectures. Euler is permissionless, whereas Morpho uses curators. And so the reactive interest rate module over here on Euler is going to mean that it's not always, you're not going to have to pay as much a lot of the time to borrow in markets on Euler. And the markets on Euler are completely permissionless, so anyone can create a market over here. So notice very little liquidity. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. You've got very little liquidity here. But on your debt, if you're borrowing the underlying against the PT, then you can loop this at max. You can use the max leverage, no problem. The only reason why you wouldn't want to use the max leverage is if you're paying more than what you're earning on your collateral. So if the borrow APY for TH bill is 7.2%, but you're earning 666 on your collateral, well, then you can't borrow very much. You see, this is the problem. Let me click on multiply. So if I were to, I need to connect my wallet here, I think, in order to be able to type in a figure here for this. Yeah, that's a shame. I can't even type it in. Yeah, so
it's like a paywall. I hate it.
I know, dude. They always do this stuff here. So looks like this looping opportunity is out. Let's take a look at this one, USDE. It's only 14 days to maturity, though. Let's just see if maybe there's an opportunity with this one. So the Penco system, this is Aave on E mode. It says that you supply, what is this, the USDE PT? So this USDE PT, you're going to earn 3.89% fixed. And then it says you're going to be able to borrow the underlying, which is USDE, at 2.16% variable, and a max looping APY of 31%. Let's see if that's real. So we're over here on the PT market on Pendle, and it looks like this is mainnet, I think. This is on Plasma. This is on Plasma. So you got to be careful with the chain that you're on. I actually just recently intentionally exited all of my Plasma positions, and here's the reason why. Take a look at the TVL over on Plasma. So Plasma was $7 billion almost, the day before the crash on October 9th of 2025. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, Plasma was all the way down at 740 million in TVL. That's nearly 90% reduction in TVL on the Plasma chain. So over the last couple of weeks, TVL has nearly doubled. All right, so TVL is nearly doubled over here, and that's still 1.5 billion. It's mostly stables, and most of it's on Aave and Pendle for the most part. I'm actually kind of dubious of these TVL numbers, to be completely honest. But if we bring it on back over to Pendle, here's that PT market. We've got the Athena USDE PT maturing 9th of April. So we've got some size here how much are we going to have to pay to borrow stables? Well, I'm not quite sure. Okay, so that means if we're in this market on Plasma, I've got to go back and take a look at the Plasma market and see how much do I have to pay to borrow USDE. Wow, okay, so it is actually 2.16%. So that means that let's hop on back over here to Pendle real quick. So over here on Pendle, if I'm earning 3.89% fixed on my USD EPT, and then I'm borrowing the underlying asset against it, paying over here on Aave that 2.16% variable. Well, let's take a look at the utilization in this market. I scroll down here. Yeah.
I'm going to jump over with Don real quick and just help him get set up here for his show in about 5 minutes.
All good, man. All good.
Hey, Sean, I appreciate you, brother, and I definitely, if you're open, I'd love to have you back on the show and we can dive into some other topics.
Yeah, sure, man. Thank you again. It was fun.
Awesome. Yeah, Sean, it's been great, man. I could get stuck running through, this Pendle looping stuff, man. So, what do you think? What do you think about, looping stuff like this on Pendle? Is this something that you would be interested in, or no, it's not right for you?
I look more to Caminos, Pendles, the really big protocols. Pendle's not even that big, really, when you compare it to Aave, but Aave is not making money. And when Aave is not making money, I have to ask myself, what's the risk reward? And I have seen many posts just in the last week since this resolve stuff of what are the risks in DeFi and what is worth it for the reward we're getting. And so when we look at something like Aave, where you're making 2%, it's not worth the risk right now. But this sort of thing, I trust Pendle. I like their team. Somebody put in the chat earlier, VE Pendle. You remember those good old days? I don't like stake Pendle as much, but the truth is we have to constantly ask, is the reward worth the risk of my capital? My capital is real. It's real money. This is not monopoly play. I think Pendle's a great tool. But not all stable coins are made equal. And, there's maybe a handful that I would trust. And you've highlighted a few of them here. So yeah, I like it. I do like it. Anytime we stack risk, right? We have a specific team and their token. We have protocol risk. We have Pendle. And then we have, what about Oracle risk? What about smart contract risk? What about... And especially if we're looping this with an asset, USDC and SUSDE or REUSD, we're talking just risk upon risk. And there has to be a breaking point. There has to be a point where I say, all right, 15% with 10% of my allocation in my portfolio per protocol, per strategy, max 10%, then it makes sense. But when we start saying, okay, yeah, 10% and I'm 30% in, 50% in, no way, man. So that's how I look at it. I have to be diversified. I have to understand the risks inherent. And then I have to understand too, when these hacks or whatever happens, exploits, printing more resolves stablecoin. When it happens, what is my strategy? What do I do? Do I take immediate action? Do I wait? What if we have another situation? Fluid has paid back millions of dollars based on their reserves. Fluid is helping their people who are affected. But some of these protocols can't take a $20 million hit. They just can't. And so again, I'm looking at Fluid going, man, those guys did a really good job. Actually, I think they've responded well. They've responded quickly. They took a lot from their reserves. But so I'm looking at groups like Fluid. I'm looking at groups like Pendle. I'm looking at groups like Camino and saying, yeah, these look to be the better options. But even with Fluid, they were safe. The token wasn't. And again, it's just a risk on risk on risk. So understanding those things, I like this. I think this is worth our time, worth our effort. And it's really not much effort. You just have to put the effort in to understand what is the mechanism, what is happening, where does the yield come from, and so on. So I do have to hop. I hope that's helpful. Give a little bit of insight into my.
It really was. It really was, Sean. Thank you. And it was a great call today. I really enjoyed taking a look at that stretch and SATA opportunity. Dude, that is a pretty cool spreadsheet that you built out. Really, really cool, man. So Yeah, man. And I think we're just going to wrap things up here. I just want to share the node.pro real quick. So if anyone wants to hop over here, I'm going to be finishing out the courses over the next week. The community here, you can join the Discord, join the school community free of charge, private coaching and DeFi for anyone who's interested in speeding up the process of building a skill set. Working here on making this newsletter complete. It's an AI-powered newsletter. And then we're also going to be launching some products in the store. I think my books are on YouTube, but not in the store yet. So give it another couple days. This stuff will be complete. Sean, thank you so much for joining us live, man. Really appreciate you. And everyone who's watching live, thank you for joining. Go ahead, hop on over to DeFi Don's DeFi High School, which starts right now. Sean, thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you guys. We'll see you. Thanks, David.
See you.